Good morning, boys and girls. Today is Monday, April 20th, 2020. It's Miss Gustafson here. I'm here to do some weekly announcements so that you know what's coming up for the week. So here we go. If you are in my ELA class, so all my ELA friends, that is Zach, Amelia, Corey, Kaden, and Aaliyah, I miss you all. Your announcements for this week. For ELA, we will not be meeting for Zoom this Wednesday like we normally do at 10 a.m. I have a meeting that I have to attend to that came up, so I will not be able to meet with you on Wednesday. However, I still will be posting an assignment at 10 o'clock on Wednesday. It'll be a video for you to watch on natural disasters, and there will be a Google form with questions, and I have also included a recording of me reading through the questions so you have that if you don't feel comfortable reading it. I will say this, that assignment will not be posted until Wednesday at 10 o'clock when we would normally meet for Zoom. It won't be there today, it won't be there tomorrow, it will be there on Wednesday, and that'll be your assignment for ELA on Wednesday. There will be more directions on there for you. So the biggest thing will just be to watch the video, to go to the Google form with the questions, listen to the recording of me reading through the questions for you and answer those and submit that. So that is for my ELA class. I put on there while you're waiting for Wednesday to come, you can be reading for 20 minutes per day. I want to hear what you guys are reading. You can read with your siblings, whoever you're at home with, grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, mom, dad, whoever you want to read with. You may do that as well. Remember, there's all sorts of ways to read a book. We don't just have to read the words, we can read the pictures as well. So find something, some of you are into comics, any of that. Anything is that you can read, be reading. I'm going to be starting a read aloud, a new read aloud this week and posting my videos. So another thing you can be doing is watching that and keeping up with our story. And then I think that's it for my ELA class. For my GRARE and Excel groups, you do not have any new assignments this week. Your only assignment really is to be reading for 20 minutes every day. I'm going to be later in this week putting a form on there where I want you to log what you're reading each day. So if you're reading a chapter book, it will probably be the same book for a few days. If you're reading a picture book, you would probably read a picture book in one sitting. So if you sat down today at 2 o'clock, you might be done with that book at 2:30. So it'll give you a log where you can kind of type in what you've been reading so I can kind of see and keep track of what you've been reading. So that's your only job for this week for my GRARE and Excel is to get on there and log what you've been reading and read for 20 minutes each day. And of course, you can be watching my read aloud videos as well. For math, I am following the same schedule as Mrs. Putney. So my math friends, Mrs. Putney sent out that schedule. We will be Zooming tomorrow, which is Tuesday at 10 o'clock. Plan to be there until at least 11:30 because we do have some new material that we will be working on together. So I look forward to seeing you tomorrow in person on the Zoom. So I think that's all the information for today. We are going to be starting a new story, and I actually don't have the actual book, but it was a story that I definitely wanted to read, and it's by Kate DiCamillo, sorry, I always say her last name right, Kate DiCamillo, and it's called The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane. And this is a chapter book, but it does have some pictures in it, and so throughout it I will be showing some pictures. I might have to get a little bit closer so you can see the pictures a little bit better. But before we begin that read aloud, you might be wondering, where is Miss Gustafson? It looks strange. There's some boards laying around. I have mentioned to some of you that I'm in the process of moving. I just bought my first house with my fiance, so it's very, very, very exciting. We actually will officially own this house this coming Wednesday. So we've been in here doing some work and getting ready for that. So you'll be seeing me in a new environment. Before I was living with my mom still at her house, but now most of my videos will be in my own new home, which is very exciting. So if you're wondering where I was at today, that is where I'm at. I'm at my new home. Okay, so this story is called The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane. And like I said, this is on my Kindle. So I don't have the actual book, but it is on my Kindle. So the illustrations are by Bagram Imbatulin, I think is how you say that last name. The dedication says, for Jane Rush Thomas, who gave me the rabbit and told me his name. I've said before in some of my other videos, I love listening to dedications because I think it's very interesting to kind of get in the mind of the writer and see when they were writing this story, who they were thinking about, who this story was really intended for. So it has this little quote in the beginning that says, "The heart breaks and lives by breaking. It is necessary to go through dark and deeper dark and not to turn." And it says this is from The Testing Tree by Stanley Kunitz. Chapter 1. Once, in a house on Egypt Street, there lived a rabbit who was made almost entirely of china. He had china arms and china legs, china paws, and a china head, a china torso, and a china nose. So I want you to think, what is China? Some of you may already know, but what is this person talking about when they're saying China? They're not talking about the country China, so be thinking, what is China? If you're not sure, be listening and see if you can figure it out. His arms and legs were joined by wire so that his china elbows and china knees could be bent, giving him much freedom of movement. His ears were made of real rabbit fur, and beneath the fur there were strong, bendable wires, which allowed the ears to be arranged into poses that reflected the rabbit's mood, jaunty, tired. His tail, too, was made of real rabbit fur and was fluffy and soft and well-shaped. The rabbit's name was Edward Tulane, and he was tall. He measured almost 3 feet from the tip of his ears to the tip of his feet. His eyes were painted a penetrating and intelligent blue. In all, Edward Tulane felt himself to be an exceptional specimen. Only his whiskers gave him pause. They were long and elegant, as they should be, but they were of uncertain origin. Edward felt quite strongly that they were not the whiskers of a rabbit. Whom the whiskers had belonged to initially, what unsavory animal, was a question that Edward could not bear to consider for too long. And so he did not. He preferred, as a rule, not to think unpleasant thoughts. Edward's mistress was a 10-year-old, dark-haired girl named Abilene Tulane, who thought almost as highly of Edward as Edward thought of himself. Each morning after she dressed herself for school, Abilene dressed Edward. The china rabbit was in possession of an extraordinary wardrobe composed of handmade silk suits, custom shoes fashioned from the finest leather and designed specifically for his rabbit feet, and a wide array of hats equipped with holes so that they could easily fit over Edward's large and expressive ears. Each pair of well-cut pants had a small pocket for Edward's gold pocket watch. Abilene wound this watch for him each morning. "Now, Edward," she'd said to him after she was done winding the watch, "when the big hand is on the 12 and the little hand is on the 3, I will come home to you." She placed Edward on a chair in the dining room and positioned the chair so that Edward was looking out the window and could see the path that led up to the Tulane front door. Abilene balanced the watch on his left leg. She kissed the tips of his ears, and then she left, and Edward spent the day staring out at Egypt Street, listening to the tick of his watch and waiting. Of all the seasons of the year, the rabbit most preferred winter, for the sun set early then, and the dining room windows became dark, and Edward could see his own reflection in the glass. And what a reflection it was! What an elegant figure he cut! Edward never ceased to be amazed at his own fineness. In the evening, Edward sat at the dining room table with the other members of the Tulane family. Abilene, her mother and father, and Abilene's grandmother, who was called Pellegrina. True, Edward's ears barely cleared the tabletop, and true also he spent the duration of the meal staring straight ahead at nothing but the bright and blinding white of the tablecloth. But he was there, a rabbit at the table. Abilene's parents found it charming that Abilene considered Edward real, and that she sometimes requested that a phrase or story be repeated because Edward had not heard it. "Papa," Abilene would say, "I'm afraid that Edward didn't catch that last bit." Abilene's father would then turn in the direction of Edward's ears and speak slowly, repeating what he had just said for the benefit of the china rabbit. Edward pretended, out of courtesy to Abilene, to listen. But in truth, he was not very interested in what people had to say, and also he did not care for Abilene's parents and their condescending manner toward him. All adults, in fact, condescended to him. Only Abilene's grandmother spoke to him as Abilene did, as one equal to another. Pellegrina was very old. She had a large, sharp nose and bright, black eyes that shone like dark stars. It was Pellegrina who was responsible for Edward's existence. It was she who had commissioned his making, she who had ordered his silk suits and his pocket watch, his jaunting hats and his bendable ears, his fine leather shoes and his jointed arms and legs, all from a master craftsman in her native France. It was Pellegrina who had given him as a gift to Abilene on her 7th birthday. And it was Pellegrina who came each night to tuck Abilene into her bed and Edward into his. "Will you tell us a story, Pellegrina?" Abilene asked her grandmother each night. Not tonight, lady, said Pellegrina. When? Asked Abilene. What night? Soon, said Pellegrina. Soon there will be a story. And then she turned off the light, and Edward and Abilene lay in the dark of the bedroom. I love you, Edward, Abilene said each night after Pellegrina had left. She said those words, and then she waited, almost as if she expected Edward to say something in return. Edward said nothing. He said nothing because, of course, he could not speak. He lay in his small bed next to Abilene's large one. He stared up at the ceiling and listened to the sound of her breath entering and leaving her body, knowing that soon she would be asleep. Because Edward's eyes were painted on and he could not close them, he was always awake. Sometimes if Abilene put him into his bed on his side instead of on his back, he could see through the cracks in the curtains and out into the dark night. On clear nights, the stars shone, and their pin-prick light comforted Edward in a way that he could not quite understand. Often he stared at the stars all night until the dark finally gave way to dawn. So that's where I'm going to leave you guys for today. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I hope you enjoyed the first chapter of the miraculous journey of Edward Tulane. I think it's going to be a great journey indeed that we will be taking. So again, we will be reading some more tomorrow that you can tune in to listen to. And if you have any questions on any of the assignments this week, just feel free to send me an email. Your parents can message me on Remind, or your grandparents or whomever you're home with and you're learning with, they may message me on Remind or contact me through email. And I will be more than willing to answer any of your questions. I hope you're all continuing to stay home and stay healthy. I miss you all, and I cannot wait until that moment that I see you again in person. Until then, I hope that you are learning well at home, and keep reading, and listening to my read alouds. That will get you right along where you need to be. See you all soon. Thank you.